私の記憶が確かならば, it has been 24 episodes and approximately 9 months since I reviewed the game for the show and fell in love with just about everything about it. The art design, the mechanics, hell, just recently I bought the soundtrack. Still haven't finished it though, I'm still working on it, but that's neither here nor there. Since then, I haven't really played any other Metroidvanias for the show, underwater or otherwise. Not by conscious choice, mind you, that's just how it happens to have turned out. Until recently, when I happened to stumble upon another underwater Metroidvania, this one appearing to be set in a dark and grim future for planet Earth, and I found myself wondering just how it might compare to Aquaria. Let's take a look at it, shall we?
First, it should be noted that the game is available by itself for $10, or as a deluxe edition for $15, which is what I got. More for myself than for the review. The deluxe edition comes with some desktop backgrounds, a map that depicts the boss locations, a digital booklet with info on the story and weapons, and the game's soundtrack, which is why I paid the extra $5. The deluxe edition doesn't add anything extra to the game itself, so you're not missing out by getting the standard version, and you can always buy the deluxe edition content separately. The place, Earth. The year, 2971. Through a combination of global warming and humans, well, being human, the planet's water levels have been skyrocketing for years, and Earth's surface has been getting steadily colder as the sun dies. This has driven the human race underwater for the past few years, but now in 2971, with the last few resources starting to run out, the humans must find somewhere else to live or face extinction. The Argo 9, a one-man vehicle which is a hybrid of submarine and spaceship, is sent into space to look for habitable planets, and a few years into the journey falls into a wormhole and is never heard from again. Years pass by, then decades, centuries, millennia. Eventually, so much time has passed that it has become immeasurable, and it's at this point when the Argo 9 finally returns to a planet that is devoid of all life. Well, all human life anyway. Aquatic life has flourished and grown to gigantic proportions. It's up to you to explore what's left of the planet and find out what happened.
The first thing that greets you when playing the Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human is a very flashy menu. By which I don't mean it's particularly fancy, I mean it flashes at you, flickering like a broken neon sign. I don't know if that was a deliberate design choice, if so I'm not sure why they went that way, or if it's just a bug in the graphics. And if so, it only seems to be present in the menu.
Once you've begun the game, the first thing you see is the Argo 9 in space embarking on and eventually returning from its exploration mission in a cutscene which, if we're being totally honest, doesn't appear all that impressive, looking more like something quickly tossed together in MS Paint. The art improves, however, once you've actually returned to the planet and begin exploring the submerged remains of civilization. Everything is bright and colorful close to the surface where you begin, and the deeper you go, the murkier and darker it becomes, even after you get a lamp attachment later in the game. The visual effects are something of a different story. As you explore, the view gently tilts from side to side, adding to the feeling of being underwater, although that immersion is often broken as you move between areas and see the edge of the screen as it tilts.
Despite being underwater, a majority of the sounds are very crisp, with perhaps a slight echo to them. The only exception to this seems to be your ship's harpoon, as every time you fire it, there seems to be a kind of a muffled quality to it. And I would have liked it more if all the sounds had that same effect to them. It would have added just that bit more to the realism.
As far as the music goes, the best way I could describe it is hauntingly beautiful. With its slow and eerie melodies, it does very well at its job of again contributing to the overall atmosphere and feeling of loneliness, and traversing what is, essentially, one giant grave marker.
On my desktop, the game would mostly run at 60 frames per second with no problem, although it would occasionally dip down to 40 or sometimes 30, especially with larger bosses on the screen. While my laptop, on the other hand, couldn't even make it out of the 30 FPS range. And in both cases, this was even without my recorder going. Now, obviously, your frame rate mileage may vary depending on what kind of equipment you've got installed on whatever machine you're running it on, but still, something to be aware of.
Other video games are quite happy to offer you an in-depth tutorial or allow you to explore, easing you into the game as you discover the controls and mechanics at your own pace. In the Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human—
Screw that shit! You're going straight into a boss fight!
Seriously, there are only 2 or 3 rooms open to you at the start of the game, and once you've discovered the movement keys, W, A, S, and D by the way, and collect your first ship attachment, the harpoon, you immediately put it to use against this giant lovely. The worm is tough at first and will probably kill you a couple of times, though the difficulty really stems from unexpectedly dealing with a boss so early in the game. Once you've memorized his attacks, he's really no problem at all. The bosses also have another odd quality about them. They're practically the only active threats you'll have to deal with. There are aquatic creatures all over the place, and you can kill them if you want, but they pose no actual threat to you. The only other hazards you'll come across are environmental. When you're not fighting a boss, you're exploring forests of seaweed, ruins of underwater cities, and other such areas, looking for some clue as to how or why the human race died out. And that's it. There's nothing else. It feels lacking. Now, I realize that I've essentially just described what you do in any Metroidvania. Fight a boss, to get to an upgrade, to get to the next boss, to get to the next upgrade, and so on until the end of the game. But other Metroidvanias at least give you something else to do between bosses. Minor enemies to kill, bonus items to collect. Aquaria has a food crafting system. Just something to keep you engaged throughout the whole game. Aquatic Adventure does have holotapes, which expand on the story in the form of bits and pieces from personal logs, but these are often in out-of-the-way locations and they feel extra. They don't go out of their way to say, hey, I'm kind of a big deal, which is a problem when that's really the only method of storytelling in the game.
Now, I was hoping to be able to beat the game for this review, but unfortunately, I got stuck at one particular boss called the Heart of the City, and really, I just didn't want to spend forever trying to get past him. And in a way, I think that speaks not only to how tough the bosses are, but to the quality of the actual game content. And if the game had more to offer between bosses, or if what was there was more interesting, then I might have been more inclined to keep trying to beat the Heart of the City and get further into the game. But as it is, I really just didn't see the point. The Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human sets out to tell a very depressing tale. One of a future which is, let's face it, very possible. But, personally, I think the message the game was trying to get across could have been delivered better. The holotapes you find in the game feel very optional. None of them feel like required reading to understand what happened to the human race. In fact, nothing they talk about seemed like they directly had anything to do with humanity's fate. Nonetheless, the premise is interesting, the music is good, and the bosses provide a good challenge for the most part. Aquatic Adventure is worth a look. It's a good game, but for my money, for everything Aquatic Adventure did well, Aquaria did better.
Thanks so much for watching my video on the Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human, everyone. I hope you'll consider liking it and sharing it if indeed you liked it and want to share it. If you'd like to know more about Aquaria, the other game I was rambling on about in this video, you can click the link to the episode on the screen. I also have links to my other show, Work in Progress, as well as one of the many Let's Plays I'm doing now. And you can check out the entire low-budget gaming playlist by clicking the logo on the left. And of course, click subscribe to stay up to date on new videos. Jikai made! Sayonara.